He has a sharp tongue, but he's losing his edge. Donald Trump is campaigning tonight in Sioux City, Iowa. That's not Donald Trump, in case you're wondering. Probably the introduction to Trump. It is Trump's second rally in the early voting state in less than a week. He has the biggest operation of any candidate in the state, but Trump is seeing his support fall recently, and not just in Iowa. In a new CBS News New York Times poll, Ben Carson knocks Trump out of that top spot nationally. 26% of Republican primary voters back Carson now. That gives him a 4-point lead over Trump, who comes in with 22% support. That means support for Carson has actually quadrupled since August. Major Garrett breaks down those numbers.
Donald Trump's support has eroded across almost every demographic group we surveyed, and two instances really caught our eye. Among Tea Party-inspired voters, Trump's support has fallen from 27% last month to 19%. Ben Carson now leads here by 9 points. Among evangelical Republicans, the two were tied last month. Now Trump trails Carson 35% to 13%. It's not all bad news for Trump. He retains two advantages. The first, Republican voters see him by almost a 2-to-1 margin as the most likely to win the general election next November. Trump's second advantage, his support is solid. 54% of his backers say they won't change their minds about the billionaire businessman. Only 19% of Carson voters are that sure. Trump's current level of voter commitment could prove decisive since so many other candidates are dividing up the remaining votes.
Do we love these polls? Somebody said, you love polls. I said, that's only because I've been winning every single one of them, right? Right? Every single poll.
Not anymore. Trump is facing the first real decline in support since launching his campaign, and Republicans have some deep institutional concerns. 48% believe the federal government is a threat to their life and liberty, while 74% believe the political system is not working, despite GOP control of the House and Senate. This is why conventional Republican politicians like Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, John Kasich, and Chris Christie remain mired in single digits. The central dynamic of this race has not changed. Republicans prefer a non-political outsider. What has changed is the personality preference, Contessa, from Trump to Carson.
And Julie Mason, host of the Press Pool with who else? Julie Mason on Sirius XM Radio, joins us from Washington. It's so great to see you, lady.
Hi, Contessa.
Okay, so when we're looking at this new national poll that has Carson steamrolling ahead, I just got to point out, Donald Trump came in with vast national name recognition. Ben Carson, a neurosurgeon, came in with none. What does this say about his ability to organize and his ability to fundraise?
Well, he's been doing really well in the fundraising, Contessa, very muscular fundraising operation. When you talk to voters and you ask them what they like about Ben Carson, they talk about him in terms of being a healer, and not just in the medical sense. His tone, his demeanor, his quiet way of speaking really appeals to people who are turned off by Donald Trump and also turned off by professional politicians. Ben Carson bringing something very different into the Republican field.
All right. The interesting part, though, is that when people were asked on Carson if their minds were made up, only 19% said yes. 79% said it's just too early. What does that mean the potential is for him now to drop way off?
Well, he needs to do really well in tomorrow night's debate, Contessa. And unfortunately for him, fiscal policy is not his strong suit. Some recent interviews he's given lately have indicated he doesn't understand much about the federal budget or how the federal government works. He can bluff his way through it. I don't think many people, watching will really care that much. I think they're still tuning in for entertainment value. So tomorrow night could not be a make or break for him. But when you talk about soft support, I have some concerns about Donald Trump's support because, as Major Garrett just mentioned, his supporters say they are diehard for him, do or die. They're going to stick with him. I'm not entirely sure that they're voters. They might just be supporters, which is a very different creature, as you know.
And what we're seeing now is that Trump has turned his sights on Carson because, presumably, because Carson's now a real threat in the polling. He says that maybe Carson has skeletons in his closet. He's bringing up his former pro-choice stance. What's likely to happen in terms of this back and forth and this dynamic where Trump is going on the attack.
Oh, we've seen that before, Contessa. Every time Donald Trump feels a little uneasy, a little threatened by another candidate, he makes a rapid-fire determination in a way that cuts them off at the knees. He called Marco Rubio a perfect little puppet. He called Jeb Bush low energy. I'm dying to hear what he has to say about Ben Carson. He has a way of defining his opponents in a very negative light, in a way that sticks, and I think we're going to see that tomorrow night.
And yet he's got to be really careful for Ben Carson that race does not enter into this at all. He can't just offhandedly throw some generalization that in any way calls into question Ben Carson's race, but he's doing it with religion, isn't he? That whole us versus them argument.
Sure. Creating this idea of the other and the unfamiliar. But I mean, nothing's hurt Donald Trump so far. Why not throw race into it for him? He's thrown religion into it, questioning John McCain's credentials as a war hero. I mean, he at Teflon Don. I wouldn't be surprised if he did throw race into it. But you're right, raising the Seventh-day Adventist issue and saying, I don't know. What is that? I don't know. It's a way of raising it without, quite raising it.
I want to look ahead to the debate tomorrow. Again, it's hosted on CNBC, focusing on fiscal policy. A lot of CNBC watchers really know the ins and outs of business, the way it works. And with the debate right now on Capitol Hill over the budget and the debt ceiling, Rand Paul says he's going to filibuster it, that he's going to block it. He won't allow a vote to go forward. You can see that these kind of issues might take center stage. Who can really take advantage of those topics?
Well, I think we're going to see Jeb Bush really make a strong stand. I think this is a venue that really favors governors and office holders, Rand Paul, Marco Rubio, who've been in office, who understand how governmental budget making works. I think we're going to see Jeb Bush really try to regain his footing here. He feels he has a strong fiscal record in Florida to run on. John Kasich also might be heard from, and especially Carly Fiorina. Contessa, we've really seen her fade out since the last debate when she did so well. She's not really doing well in the polls. She's going to try to use her business background as a way to get a toehold in talking about these budgetary issues. It might be a snooze, but but there's a lot going on sort of
I don't know,
below the surface.
If you look at Kasich, I mean, here he is coming out saying today, do you know how crazy this election is? I've about had it with these people, meaning his opponents on the GOP side.
Yeah, we hear that from a lot of establishment Republicans who just appear flummoxed by what's happening. Donald Trump, Ben Carson, these are the front runners, but we're still a few months out from the Iowa caucuses, and I think there will be a great deal of winnowing. Candidates dropping out, some of the the not showers in the polls, Gilmore and Pataki, wonder why they're still in it, Bobby Jindal. So I think some candidates will fall off, and then some other candidates who are doing well will not be doing so well, and there'll be some evening out, and maybe John Kasich will get some traction then.
And it will be something that our graphics people will love when they don't have to put 19 people are. I can't even keep track of how many we are now. Julie, so good to see you. Thank you.
Thanks, Contessa.
You can see full coverage of the third GOP debate right here on CBSN. It begins Wednesday night at 7.